Phil Mickelson has received a lot of flack over his decision to join the LIV Tour earlier this year, but the 51-year-old believes he made the right decision. Aside from the massive payday, Mickelson is now more high-profile than he's been in his career, and things are looking up for his career. Today, we'll be taking a look at some recent comments Phil made about the PGA Tour, how he came back to Twitter, and more. So let's begin. First up, what did Phil Mickelson say about PGA? At a recent press conference in Saudi Arabia, Phil Mickelson didn't hold back any punches when talking about his former employer. He said that going forward, golf players are going to have to pick a side. They need to pick the side that they think is going to be successful. And according to Phil, that side is LIV. He mentioned that both LIV and PGA have some of the best players in the world. However, since both sides are forbidden from playing with each other, they're going to evolve differently. He believes that LIV is going to evolve in a way where it trends upward and PGA is going to do the opposite. In fact, Phil believes that PGA is already trending downward. At the end of the interview, Phil mentioned that he's glad to be playing on the winning side. This is the sentiment that a lot of players that have recently joined LIV have. It's the story that LIV is trying to sell to everybody right now, but it's too early to tell if they're right. Coming up, Phil Mickelson addresses his earlier comments against Saudi Arabia. The LIV Tour is completely funded by the Saudi government. This is primarily the reason why it's so controversial, because people have a lot of opinions on that. In fact, when the Saudi plans for the LIV Tour initially came out, Phil Mickelson was one of the people to criticize it. He said that the Saudis are some seriously scary people to deal with. He mentioned how they allegedly killed a Washington Post reporter and how they have a horrible record of human rights. All of this was said during a private interview with Alan Shipnuck, who was writing a biography for Phil Mickelson. These comments were not supposed to be leaked to the public. Now that Phil Mickelson officially works for the Saudis, he has changed his tune quite a bit and finally addressed some of those past comments. He claimed that the comments were recorded and released without any context, adding that he has nothing but respect for Saudi Arabia and everyone he has worked with on LIV Golf thus far. He also said that his entire experience with LIV has been nothing short of amazing so far. He loves how the organizers of the tour actually listen to the players and include them in any rule changes. It's how the players got permission to play while wearing shorts for the first time. Up next, Phil Mickelson reacts to hilarious henna tattoo. On a lighter note, Phil Mickelson recently took a tour of the city of Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. During his tour, he visited a henna tattoo shop and got his own logo tattooed onto his hand. However, the tattoo didn't exactly turn out the way he wanted. During the same press interview, he showed off the new henna tattoo and then pointed toward his shirt, saying it was supposed to look like this. There were laughs all around the conference hall when he said that, and it reminded us of the good old days with Phil Mickelson before there was all of that LIV controversy surrounding him. Thankfully, henna tattoos aren't permanent, so he'll only have to deal with those obnoxiously large arms for a few more days instead of the rest of his life. Next, Mickelson says that LIV is the World Series cricket of golf. LIV Golf isn't exactly the first rebel tour in sport. In fact, there are a lot of different tours and leagues that can be compared to it. During the press conference, Phil Mickelson reminded the hall of a little something called World Series cricket. It was an unofficial cricket league that shortened the format and broke away from some of the rules and traditions of the sport to gain some more mass appeal. Eventually, its popularity outgrew that of traditional cricket, and despite attempts to suppress it, other cricket boards were eventually forced to sign deals with the World Series and eventually adopt their rules and systems. Phil Mickelson believes that LIV is going to be the modern equivalent to that, but with golf. He mentioned how cricket players used to earn something like $200 a night, but they eventually started earning millions of dollars every year. Something very similar is happening with LIV. Overworked players are now working a much lighter schedule, and they're being paid tens of millions more every year. On top of that, LIV has hinted that it will change up some of its rules to be more non-traditional. Let's see how that goes. Coming up, Phil Mickelson returns to Twitter. In the midst of all the backlash surrounding his decision to join LIV Golf, Phil Mickelson temporarily left most of his social media accounts, including Twitter. Mickelson had been active on Twitter since at least 2018, and his first ever tweet actually went viral, gaining over 30,000 likes. Fans loved interacting with Phil because he always had the funniest takes, and his account genuinely seemed like it was run by him. But for much of 2022, his Twitter account has primarily consisted of official statements. He no longer replies to fans, talks about what's going on in the golf world, or anything else like that. His last tweet was sent out on June 7, 2022, shortly after he joined LIV. However, in October 2022, Phil finally returned to Twitter and actually replied to a bunch of fans. Of course, he didn't really address any sort of negativity surrounding him, but it's a good start. He will likely be much more reserved on Twitter now that he's gone through such a big controversy, but his fans are hoping that he'll soon be back to having one of the most entertaining gold-related Twitter accounts in the world. Now let's take a look at some other related news. First, Phil Mickelson asks to be dismissed from LIV lawsuit. Earlier this year, LIV Golf filed a lawsuit against the PGA Tour claiming that PGA has been anti-competitive with its conduct regarding the emergence of LIV. This came as PGA has been banning players that joined LIV from competing on their tour, playing on their golf courses, and preventing them from entering prestigious events. To fire back, PGA filed a countersuit against LIV, claiming that the Saudi-backed league had been anti-competitive by luring its players with large sums of cash. This isn't really an allegation, considering LIV has publicly admitted to trying to reel players from the PGA to itself. Certain players have been paid hundreds of millions of dollars just to violate their contracts and play LIV instead. Initially, many of LIV's top players were named as a part of the lawsuit. However, not many of the players have asked to be dismissed from it. One of the more notable players to do so is Phil Mickelson. This isn't really a shock, considering the American player recently said that the lawsuit wasn't really that important. But could this be a way for Phil to mend ties with the PGA Tour? Probably not. Up next, Phil Mickelson calls out OWGR. For a while now, LIV has been trying to become a part of the official world golf rankings. The Saudi League has already gotten 12 of the top 50 players in the world when it comes to this ranking. But unfortunately for them, games played in LIV events will not earn them any points. This is a disappointment for many, especially players like Cam Smith, who was ranked number 2 but can't earn any more points despite being very successful in LIV so far. To join the rankings, LIV partnered up with the MENA Tour, which is part of the OWGR ranking. However, that still wasn't enough. In a recent press conference, Phil Mickelson said that it was unfair that LIV games don't earn players any points in the rankings. He said that in order for the rankings to maintain their credibility, they need to stop playing politics and include LIV, since it has many of the best players in the world, including the world number 2. And finally, LIV gets support from OWGR. Following LIV's strategic partnership with the MENA Tour, OWGR didn't immediately accept their events as eligible for earning points. However, they said that they are reviewing and considering LIV's request while also keeping the recent changes in mind. On top of that, an OWGR committee member named Cho Min Thant said that he would like to see LIV gain points toward the world rankings. However, Cho said that even if LIV were to be included, its events would hold less weight in the rankings since the entire situation is different. There aren't as many players, some of the rules are different, and there are other problems as well. But still, the fact that an OWGR committee member has publicly come out in support of LIV is some pretty good news for the league. Well, that's a wrap for this video. Do you think Phil Mickelson will ever mend ties with the PGA Tour? Let us know in the comments below. Also, as always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and we'll see you in the next one.